I don't remember the last time Kira and I argued. Not because things were perfect, not because we'd worked through our issues, but because we stopped everything. The noise, the affection, the tension, even the laughter, it all just faded into this strange, heavy quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't soothe. The kind that presses in on your chest like a weight you can't shake. At first, I thought maybe we were just tired. Life gets like that sometimes. Long days at work, bills piling up, laundry never done, plans always postponed. I figured we were just in a rut. Everyone hits those. You dig yourself out, eventually. But this wasn't a rut. It was erosion. Kira stopped asking how my day was. She stopped teasing me about the way I oversalt everything or fall asleep with the TV on. She used to laugh, like really laugh, at the dumbest things I said, and not in a fake way either. Like it genuinely amused her. But that laughter disappeared somewhere, and I can't even tell you when. We used to stay up talking about everything, making plans we'd never follow through on, dreaming up ridiculous travel ideas, fantasizing about quitting our jobs and opening a food truck or moving to the coast. Those talks vanished too. Now, we'd climb into bed without a word. She'd turn off the light on her side, and I'd just lie there staring at the ceiling like a guest overstaying my welcome in my own house. She stopped touching me. I stopped asking her to. Not out of pride, but because rejection hurts more when it comes from someone who once craved you. You feel the absence like a phantom limb, like your body remembers being wanted even when your heart knows better. But the thing that got to me the most wasn't the silence. It was the way it started to feel intentional. Like she was pulling away on purpose. And I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself couples go through phases. I told myself to be patient. Then one night, I noticed her phone light under the covers. We'd been lying in bed for about 20 minutes. I'd said goodnight, she hadn't replied. I assumed she was asleep. But then I saw the glow, just this faint blue flicker, and the quick tapping of her fingers. She turned her body slightly away from me, as if that would make her invisible. I didn't say anything. Not that night. Or the night after. But I started noticing more. The way her phone was always face down. How she'd take it with her into the bathroom, something she never used to do. She started using a new passcode. Changed her lock screen from a picture of us to some generic sunset photo. I asked her about it once. Just casually, like I wasn't drowning inside. I said, "Hey, you're on your phone a lot lately, everything okay at work?" She smiled, thin and practiced. Said she was working on a big project, and her boss had them on call around the clock. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But there was this look in her eye, like the truth was something fragile she was trying to keep hidden behind her teeth. And then one night I saw it. Just a flash for maybe half a second. Her screen lit up while she was in the kitchen, and a message preview popped up. It was a heart emoji. No name. Just that red cartoon heart and a line of text that said, "Can't stop thinking about last night." My stomach dropped. I didn't say anything. I pretended I hadn't seen it. I acted like I was still the oblivious, trusting husband who thought late-night texts were all about spreadsheets and team check-ins. But that was the night I started counting. The nights we hadn't touched, 19 in a row. The mornings she got dressed in silence, barely glancing my way, 13. The evenings she said she was meeting friends, but came home smelling like cologne I didn't recognize, 4. The fake laughs, the stiff hugs, the vague excuses, too many to keep track of. And I hated myself for noticing. I hated that I had become that guy, suspicious, insecure, watching for signs like a detective in a bad movie. That wasn't me. That wasn't us. Except maybe it was now. Sometimes I'd hear her in the other room, talking softly. Laughing quietly. Not the full laugh, just the kind that slips out when you're trying not to wake someone. I'd walk in and she'd hang up, or switch apps, or say she was just watching a video. Once, I came around the corner too fast and saw her snap her laptop shut like it was radioactive. I didn't press her. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. Not because I wasn't angry, but because I was afraid of the answer. Afraid that if I pushed, she'd tell me the truth, and I'd have to do something about it. Something permanent. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. Instead, I did the one thing that hurt more than anything else. I kept believing in her. Even when the evidence said not to. Even when my gut screamed at me to wake up. Even when I knew, deep down, in that quiet place you try not to visit too often, that the person I loved was already halfway out the door. I convinced myself that she was just tired. That we could fix this. That maybe if I cooked dinner more often, or complimented her hair, or planned a surprise weekend away, she'd come back to me. But she never really left the house. She just left me. And now, every time I looked at her across the dinner table, I couldn't help but wonder who she was texting under the table. Who she was thinking about while I washed the dishes. Who she imagined when she smiled to herself and thought I wasn't looking. I still told her I loved her. Out of habit. Out of hope. Out of desperation. And she still said it back. But it sounded like a voicemail recording. Polite, empty. Already deleted before I could replay it. That's how it started. Not with a fight. But with silence. The call came just before sunrise. That blurry, in-between hour when it's too early for alarms but too late to pretend you're still asleep. My phone buzzed once on the nightstand. Then again. Then it started to ring. Her name lit up the screen. Kier. At first, I thought maybe something had happened. An accident. A breakdown on the road. But before I could even say hello, her voice hit me like a slap to the face. She was crying. Not gentle, quiet crying, but full-on sobbing, gasping like she couldn't breathe. Her words were tangled. I could barely make them out, but I caught a few. Please, don't open it. Over and over. Please, Mark. Please, don't read it. I didn't mean for you to see it. Don't open the message. She was panicking, unraveling at the seams. And the thing that stuck out to me the most, the part that made my blood run cold, was the desperation in her voice. It wasn't the voice of someone afraid I was hurt. It was the voice of someone terrified that I finally knew. But I hadn't opened anything. Not yet. The message she was talking about, I'd only seen the notification. A new text from an unknown number. No name. Just one attachment. It came in sometime during the night, maybe while I was asleep, maybe while she was in the bathroom. I hadn't tapped it. I still haven't, I thought. My phone sat heavy in my hand, like a decision I wasn't ready to make. And as she cried on the other end of the line, begging me not to look, I realized something that scared the hell out of me. She knew exactly what I'd find in there. She wasn't denying it. She wasn't even pretending to be innocent. She was pleading, like maybe if I didn't open that message, we could go back to pretending. Like if the truth never had a moment to breathe, it wouldn't have the power to burn everything down. But I said nothing. Not a single word. Because part of me already knew what the attachment contained. Not the details, not the images or the names, but the meaning, the confirmation, the final blow. That message would take everything I had been trying to deny and twist it into something undeniable. And I wasn't ready for that. I held the phone to my ear, listening to her come apart in real time. Her breath hitching, her voice cracking. Saying my name like a prayer. Like a curse. Like an apology that came too late. Mark, please. Please don't do this. But she was too late. Not because I'd seen the message, but because everything leading up to it had already built the case against her. The secrecy. The distance. The little lies dressed up as white ones. The way she flinched when I touched her. The way she clung to her phone like it was an oxygen tank and I was the one suffocating her. I still hadn't opened the message, but I could feel the truth radiating off of it. Like heat from a fire just beyond the door. All it would take was one touch. One finger. One swipe. And there would be no turning back. And still, I didn't press it. Not out of mercy. Not out of forgiveness. But because I wasn't sure what would hurt more, confirming it, or knowing she'd already admitted it by calling me in tears. Eventually, she went quiet. Her sobs softened into hiccups, then into silence. And I knew she was waiting for me to say something. Anything. I didn't. The silence on my end must have scared her more than anything I could have said. Mark, she whispered. Are you still there? I swallowed hard, my throat dry like I'd swallowed ash. Yeah, I finally said. Another long pause. Did you open it? I hesitated. Then said, no. And I don't know what she was hoping for, relief, maybe, But instead of calming down, she started crying again. Softer this time. Like she understood that not opening it didn't change anything. The damage was already done. The silence between us stretched. Long, awkward. Unforgiving. Then she said something that stuck with me more than anything else. I didn't want it to happen like this. Like there was a version of betrayal that came with better packaging. Like if I had found out another way, it wouldn't have hurt as much. Like there was ever a right way to gut someone who loved you. I almost laughed. But I didn't. Instead, I hung up. Not out of cruelty. But because there was nothing left to say. No version of this conversation where she says something that makes it all go away. No words that take back the nights she lied to my face or whispered to someone else in the dark. The message was still there, unopened. A single line in my inbox. A grenade with the pin already halfway pulled. I set the phone down, face up this time. Stared at the glowing screen. My thumb hovered over it like I was about to tap, but I didn't. Not yet. Because once I opened it, the truth wouldn't be something I suspected anymore. It would be something I'd have to live with. I didn't leave in a rage. There was no yelling, no slammed doors, no dramatic speeches echoing through the house. I just left. It was around 6 in the morning when I finally got up. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, just a gray wash bleeding across the horizon. I slipped on a hoodie, grabbed my keys, and walked out the front door without saying a word. The sound of it closing behind me felt more like punctuation than a statement. Something final. The street was empty. Still damp from the night's rain. I got in my car and pulled out of the driveway like I had somewhere to go. I didn't. I just needed to move. Needed to breathe somewhere else. Somewhere that didn't have her scent soaked into the walls. I kept my eyes on the road, but my thoughts were all over the place. It was like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part just wanted to pull over and sleep until this was all over. But mostly I felt numb. Like my body knew something my heart wasn't ready to process. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't check it. I didn't have to. It buzzed again. Then again. And then a fourth time, longer this time. A call. I turned on the radio to drown it out, but the static was louder than any song. Eventually, the notifications stopped. I kept driving. I passed through the old part of town. The diner where we used to grab pancakes after long nights out. The park where I first told her I loved her. Places that had become mine and hers. Ours. But now they just looked like crime scenes, like memories taped off with yellow lines, untouched, unspeakable. About an hour later, I pulled into an empty parking lot behind a grocery store. The kind of place no one goes that early unless they work there. I turned off the engine and sat there, staring at the cracked pavement and faded parking lines. And that's when the next message came through. Just 5 words. You weren't supposed to see this. No name. No emoji. No explanation. Just a line that hit harder than any confession could. That was it. That's all it took for my whole body to finally catch up with what my mind had been trying to deny. My hands went cold. My chest tightened. My jaw clenched so hard I felt my molars grind. She hadn't said I'm sorry. She hadn't said I love you. She hadn't even tried to explain. Just an admission that whatever I'd seen, I wasn't meant to. Like the truth was some secret code I wasn't smart enough or worthy enough to crack. The message wasn't just a warning, it was a confirmation. I still hadn't opened the attachment. That single unopened file sitting in my inbox like a grenade with the pin out. I could feel it burning a hole in my pocket. And yet, my finger hovered over the screen, afraid to make it real. I told myself it didn't matter. That I already knew. That I didn't need to see photos or texts or whatever evidence was waiting for me on the other side of that tap. But if that were true, why couldn't I stop thinking about it? Why couldn't I stop staring at the screen? I was paralyzed, torn between wanting to know and needing to pretend, just for a little longer, that I could still unlive this. I closed my eyes and leaned my head back against the seat. The roof of the car felt too close, like it was pressing down on me. I wanted to cry, but nothing came. It was like my body had shut off that valve. Too much. Too fast. Too real. I stayed in that lot for almost an hour, just sitting there while the world woke up around me. Birds chirped. Cars passed. The sun climbed a little higher. Everything moved forward like nothing had changed. But for me, everything had. I finally turned the car back on, the engine growling like it didn't want to start. I pulled out of the lot, directionless again. The city blurred past the windows. My hands on the wheel felt foreign, like they belonged to someone else. Someone who still believed he was loved. The weird thing was, I wasn't angry. Not really. Anger would have been easier. Cleaner. But what I felt was messy. A sadness so deep it didn't even have a shape. Like I'd lost something I never fully understood to begin with. I kept wondering when it had started. Not the cheating. But the leaving. When had she decided she was done? Was it in the middle of a fight? Over coffee one morning? Had she looked at me one day and just stopped feeling? The thought that haunted me wasn't just who she had been with. It was how long she'd been gone while still pretending to be here. By the time I pulled back into our neighborhood, the sun was up. Blinding. Mocking. I didn't want to go inside. The idea of being in the same space as her, breathing the same air, knowing what I knew, or what I was about to know, made my skin crawl. But I also knew I couldn't sit in the car forever. Eventually, you have to go home. Even when it doesn't feel like home anymore. Even when you know what's waiting for you inside might be worse than what you've seen out here. I parked. Cut the engine. And for a few seconds, just listened to the ticking of the car as it cooled. Then I picked up my phone. The screen lit up again. Same message. Same file. Unopened. Still unopened. But not for much longer. When I pulled into the driveway, her car was already there. I hadn't expected that. Part of me thought, maybe even hoped, she'd be gone. That I'd walk into an empty house, sit on the couch, and take a breath without having to see her face. But her car sat there like it always had, perfectly parked, perfectly still, like everything was normal. I sat in my car for a while, engine off, hands on the steering wheel. The house looked the same. The porch light was still on from the night before. A half-empty coffee mug sat on the railing where she always left it and forgot. Curtains were pulled halfway shut like they'd been drawn by someone trying to hide but not really caring if they got caught. It all looked painfully, insultingly ordinary. I finally forced myself out of the car. The walk up the steps felt heavier than usual. The key slid into the lock like always, but the door felt heavier too, like the air inside had thickened into something that didn't want to let me through. And the moment I stepped inside, I knew why. The house didn't smell like home. That soft, comforting scent I'd always associated with her, coconut shampoo, vanilla candles, the faint smell of her body lotion, it was gone. Replaced with something artificial. Something colder. A different air freshener maybe. Too sweet. Too sharp. Like she had tried to scrub the place clean of guilt, not realizing it only made it worse. I took a slow step forward and then I saw her. She was sitting on the edge of the couch, phone in her lap, back straight like she'd been waiting for me. She didn't look shocked to see me. She didn't look relieved either. She looked angry. Not teary. Not regretful. Angry. Like I had done something wrong. Like she was the one betrayed. Her eyes met mine and I saw it, the cold edge, the heat behind it. No shame. No softness. Just the readiness for a fight I hadn't even started yet. She stood up slowly, eyes locked on mine, and said the first words between us in almost 12 hours. So are you going to say anything? That was it. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I can explain. Just a challenge. I stared at her, too tired to even pretend I didn't understand what was happening. She wasn't going to beg. She wasn't going to deny. She was going to turn this around and make it about me. About how I'd failed her. About how I wasn't enough. And for some reason, that made everything worse. I didn't respond. I just dropped my keys into the bowl by the door and walked past her like she wasn't even there. She followed me, of course. Her voice sharper now, her tone rising with every step I took toward the kitchen. You just leave in the middle of the night without a word? You think that's okay? I opened the fridge, stared inside like I was looking for an answer. Closed it again. Still silent. You don't get to act like the victim, Mark, she snapped, arms crossed, now standing behind me. That was when I turned. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just enough to face her, really face her. And I didn't say anything for a while. I just let her look at me. Let her see the exhaustion in my face. The tight line of my jaw. The quiet fury building under my skin. You lied, I said finally. It came out flat. Final. She flinched, barely, but recovered fast. You were never really here, she shot back, like she'd been waiting to use that line. You've been distant for months. What was I supposed to do? Pretend everything was okay while you shut me out? I stared at her, heart pounding in my ears. She was spinning it so fast I almost laughed. This is my fault? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Just stood there, arms crossed, jaw set like she'd made up her mind days ago. I didn't plan for this to happen, she said, voice quieter now. But you made it so easy to fall away. You barely looked at me anymore. I felt invisible. I wanted to scream, to grab something and throw it across the room. But I didn't. Because somewhere deep inside, a switch had flipped. And nothing she said could hurt me more than the silence I'd been living in for months. I shook my head. You could have said something. I tried, she said, eyes flashing. But you didn't want to hear it. You tried, I said, voice rising now. By sneaking around behind my back? By hiding your phone like a teenager? By lying every night and then calling me, crying, to beg me not to open a message. Her expression changed. The fury cracked just a little. I panicked, she said. No, I replied. You got caught. That's what happened. Don't confuse the two. She looked away then toward the window. Her jaw clenched. Her eyes glassed over. But she didn't cry. Because she wasn't sorry. She was cornered. And when people like her get cornered, they don't apologize. They blame. She opened her mouth, probably to try one last spin, one last jab, but I was already walking away. I left her standing there in the kitchen with the filtered morning light hitting her face just right, like a scene out of a movie that didn't deserve a sequel. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel confused. I felt done. I didn't rush upstairs. I took the stairs slowly, one hand grazing the rail, every step deliberate. Not because I wanted to draw this out, but because something about it deserved that weight. The climb felt like walking toward the edge of something I couldn't come back from. Our bedroom door was still open, just like it always was. Same comforter half folded, her side of the bed slightly messy, mine untouched. There were 2 coffee cups on the nightstand, hers from this morning, mine from 2 days ago. Little signs of a routine that didn't mean anything anymore. I walked in, opened the closet, pulled out a duffel bag. I wasn't making a scene. I wasn't packing in a storm of rage. I didn't throw drawers open or yank shirts off hangers. I just started picking through the pieces of my life that still belonged to me. Socks. A few button-downs. The passport I almost forgot about. My laptop charger, stuffed at the bottom of the nightstand drawer. It was mechanical. Quite. Like I'd done this before. Like I'd practiced for it in my head 1,000 times. Halfway through, my phone buzzed again. I almost ignored it. But this one wasn't from Kira. It was the same unknown number. The one with the attachment. The one she cried about. Only this time, it wasn't just a file. There was a message. A longer one. I didn't know she was married until last week. I'm sorry. She told me you were separated. I wouldn't have gotten involved if I'd known. Then, under that, another message. I'm not trying to cause problems. I just thought you should know. Here's what she sent me the night before last. Then the photo. And just like that, the line between what I feared and what I knew collapsed. I tapped it. It took a second to load, just enough time for my stomach to drop. And then it was there. A mirror I didn't want to look into, but couldn't turn away from. A photo of Kira in bed. Our bed. Wearing a shirt I didn't recognize. Sheets twisted around her waist, skin bare. She wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking at someone else, whoever took the photo. And she was smiling. Not a forced smile. Not a polite one. A soft, content, deeply intimate smile. The kind she used to give me before we ever said, I love you. The kind I hadn't seen in months. And that was it. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't drop the phone or fall to my knees like some dramatic movie cliché. I just stood there, staring at a screen I couldn't unsee. My hands didn't shake. My chest didn't heave. My heart didn't even break. It just stopped believing. Because there's a moment when betrayal becomes so sharp, so clean, that it doesn't bleed, it just cuts. Straight through everything. Through the memories, through the justifications, through the hope you didn't realize you were still holding on to. I looked around the room at all the familiar things. Her perfume bottle on the dresser. The framed photo of us on our last trip to the mountains. The silly ceramic mug with his written on the side, a matching hers, sitting downstairs. All of it felt fake now. Like stage props in a life I had been auditioning for, never realizing the script had been rewritten behind my back. I sat on the edge of the bed, still holding my phone, the image frozen on the screen. There were no words left. No more questions. No what-ifs. She didn't just cheat. She built an entire alternate version of herself. One where I didn't exist. One where her wedding ring meant nothing. One where this house was just a backdrop, not a home. And she'd let me sleep just feet away from the same bed where she'd given someone else the part of her I thought was still mine. The irony hit hard. All those nights I'd rolled over hoping maybe she'd reach for me, maybe she'd soften, maybe she still cared. And she had been soft. She had reached for someone. It just wasn't me. There was a knock at the doorframe. I didn't look up. I didn't want you to see that, she said quietly. Still, I didn't move. Kira, I said without looking at her, don't speak unless it's an apology. There was a pause. No footsteps. No movement. Then she said, it didn't mean anything. I laughed, just once. Chirped. Bitter. You said that about a mistake. This was a choice. Another pause. I finally looked up. Her arms were crossed like she was cold. But I didn't care. I was lonely, she said. So you solved that by inviting someone into our bed? I asked. The bed where we built our life? That was the solution. She didn't answer. Maybe she knew there wasn't a version of this conversation where she came out with her dignity intact. I stood. Tossed the phone onto the bed like it burned. This isn't a conversation anymore, I said. It's a conclusion. She took a step forward. Wait, can we please just? No, my voice was calm but final. You don't get to ask for anything anymore. I picked up my bag, zipped it shut, and brushed past her without another word. Her voice followed me. Mark, please, don't do this. We can figure it out. But we couldn't. Not anymore. Because the truth had finally opened its eyes. And it didn't blink. I found her downstairs, sitting on the floor, phone still in her hand. No tears now. Just a stare like stone. Cold. Hardened. Like she'd made peace with who she was. I didn't say anything. Neither did she. Then, as if on cue, she started blaming me. Said I was boring. Predictable. Said I stopped trying years ago. That it just happened. That I drove her to it. I let her talk. I didn't interrupt. Because the moment someone blames you for the choice they made in secret, that's when you know you're not dealing with guilt. You're dealing with a person who just wants to win the argument. So I turned around. She started shouting, begging, screaming even. But I never looked back. Not once. There was nothing left in her voice that could touch me anymore. Outside, the cold hit me clean. It was honest. Honest in a way she hadn't been in months. I didn't feel strong. Just certain. In the days that followed, I filed for divorce. Clinical. I canceled accounts. Shut down anything that still had her name attached to it. Blocked her number. I wasn't being vindictive, I was being free. Then, out of nowhere, the man from the messages reached out. We met in a quiet diner. I expected arrogance. Instead, I found confusion. He said she lied to him too. Said she told him we were separated, basically done. She'd built a fiction for both of us. Played us like parts in a story she controlled. And that's when it all clicked. She didn't just cheat, she choreographed a performance. We were both just props. I moved into a small place, minimal, quiet. It didn't echo with lies. I stopped checking my phone hoping she'd reach out. Because she did. Through friends. Through silence. Through pity. I never answered. Not once. Because by the time she said, please don't read the message, I already knew. The truth wasn't in that photo. It was in every silence. Every excuse. Every moment she stopped choosing me. And when I finally let go, I didn't feel rage. I felt release. She didn't just lose me. She lost the version of me who would have stayed. And I belonged to whatever came next.